This is PROpulsion, the podcast where we dive deep into the nitty-gritty of taking your business and your practice to the next level. Whether you are an entrepreneur, a franchisee, or a financial planning pro, you are in the right place. We're talking the latest tech, best practices, and expert insights, all while keeping it real and entertaining. So grab a coffee, sit back, and let's get ready to blast off. I'm your host, Francois de Toy. Georgina, you're like an old friend. Welcome back. Nice to see you this morning.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Francois. I really appreciate it. And well done with that ascend. I'm looking forward to being one of the panelists on that.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
That's morning. So I think that's going to be a really great morning.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Let's not talk about ascend. Otherwise, I'm going to hijack your conversation, right? But thank you very much. Georgina, I'm really, really keen. Since I gotten to know you, I became aware of the fact that you swim. There's somebody else that also swims that I know about, Ryan Strumrud. He was on our show way back in season 1. And then I thought he's the only guy. And then I heard but there's this lady called Georgina who does very interesting things. And it seems to be a very, obviously not a very, but it's a significant part of your life. I almost want to say it's who you are. So how did you first get into this whole thing around, it's a challenging activity. So how did you get into it?
Well, so I know Ryan. Ryan and I swim in the same pool just by coincidence. So quite often I'm in the lane next door to Ryan. He does go a bit faster than me, so I just wave him on. But how did I get into swimming? So as I think you know, but maybe our audience doesn't, I came and arrived in South Africa in 2015. And when you arrive in a new country, anyone that's moved country, and many South Africans have, that first year can be quite lonely. You're thinking, gosh, how do I make friends? And I've always been reasonably physically active, and there's a history of rugby for me. And I thought, well, I'll go to the gym and see if I can meet people there. And I met the swim coach, and he said, let's we run this swim squad. Why don't you join? And I thought, what a great way to meet people. And so I joined the swim squad. I wasn't a terribly good swimmer. Anyone that's grown up in the UK will know that the Brits aren't natural swimmers. Yes, we do quite well in the Olympics, but other than that, the average person is nowhere near as proficient at swimming as South Africans. So pretty much I got in the pool and, just did my best. My background was pretty much school swimming and collecting bricks off the bottom of the pool, which is what tends to happen in the UK for some reason. I don't really know why. Anyway, so got meeting some really interesting and wonderful people. And one of them, a dear friend, no longer with us, called Craig, he said to me, and he used to, funny enough, be the guy who organised the Robben Island swim when it was done on one particular day in the year. He said, George, you're missing out on so much that South Africa has to offer. You really need to get in the open water. And obviously, as any normal and natural fear-finding person would be, I was quite nervous because I envisaged there being sharks behind every rock. I'd obviously heard all the stories about old women being eaten by great whites and only their swimming cap was found. And, the Cape is riddled with those stories. So after a lot of coaxing, I was enticed to swim at Fishhook behind the nets. So there's nets there that keep you safe. There's quite large holes in the net, so I'm not really sure how safe I felt. And I'm not going to lie, I was petrified, absolutely petrified. I probably did that for a few goes, and gradually it just sort of grew. And there were a few of us back then. Open water swimming wasn't massive. It's grown enormously over the last few years, and the few of us really just kind of gradually, and we did it together. We were all in the same place. We were all quite fearful, and the few of us just gradually pushed the boundaries. And before you know it, you're sort of swimming 1.5 km or 2 km, and you're seeing wonderful fish. You're seeing the wonderful wildlife that we have around these shores, and that was really the start. And it was just a way to connect with people, to be in nature, to completely switch off. There's no headphones, there's nothing that can distract you. and really just immerse yourself in that feeling of tranquility, whilst also being a bit chilly as well. So yeah, that's kind of how it started. And then lockdown happened, my goodness, and we were banned from all the beaches, and that was disastrous. And somebody phoned me on it was actually around my birthday, which is 21st July. So they phoned me and they said, George, we've just come out of lockdown, I know, but actually the weather window for swimming around Cape Point has opened. Would you be interested in swimming it? At Cape Point, swimming around Cape Point, you go from DS Beach to Buffalo's Beach, and it's about 8 kilometers. I'd never swum anything like that before. I was incredibly anxious about it. And this person said to me, they said, George, what's the worst that can happen? You just get on the boat, because there's obviously a boat that supports you. And the weather window only opens really quite rarely, probably about once or twice a year, because you've really got it. I mean, around Cape Point, if you can imagine, it's a bit like a washing machine. And so you're looking for flat waters, you're looking for warm waters, you're looking for decent sunshine, you're looking for all of these things to line up. So I said yes. And that was the start of it. The weather window hadn't opened, by the way. It was a complete washing machine. It was hideous. But we did it. I did this 8K swim, and it was my first big swim under my belt, and that was me hooked. And following on from there was Robin Islands and all sorts of things.
Yeah, I love it. Like, I can just stand here and listen to you all morning. I don't even have to ask anything. It's just tell me your story, Georgina. It's let me just crack a little joke just for a second. Like, I thought it was just the roads that had potholes in them. I did not imagine that the nets in the sea would also have some potholes.
Oh no,
but,
there's big holes. If you think you're safe behind fishing nets, you're not safe.
Yeah, no. So, I mean, obviously a big question for me would be like, I mean, when you start off with this and you're here in the middle, I mean, you've seen the movies, you've seen like, it's hectic. You don't know what's swimming underneath you, around you, none of that stuff. And you're fearful. And then you go on and on and on. You've done this plenty of times. You've done world, what do you call, like the Guinness World Records stuff that you've done, which we'll talk about. But do you still get fearful when you go in, or is it now just, it's almost like I imagined, like last week I was speaking at a conference. I got on stage, I spoke, I got off, and I thought, like, I wasn't nervous once. So do you get to that point where these things don't bother you anymore? You're still very aware, but you don't overthink it so that you get that fearful? Or is it every time you go into a new area of the ocean that maybe you feel like, talk to me about the fear component of this and what you feel every time that you do this?
Yeah, isn't it funny how nature has this wonderful way of keeping you in check every so often? Just when you think you're relaxed and you've got this thing licked, it comes and slaps you in the face. And as Mike Tyson, I think it was, said, everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the face, and it's just the same in swimming. There's always fear, and because if it goes wrong in the sea, it goes wrong very, very quickly. And I can think of a few instances where, and particularly one in Noordhoek, where I live, where I didn't think I was going to come out alive. And that was not about wildlife. That was just about getting it wrong in the conditions. It was a situation where I was a proficient swimmer. I was with 5 other people. That's always one of the rules. You must buddy up. I was with 5 other people. And somehow I just separated myself from the group a little bit, and we were behind the break, and somehow I drifted inshore a little bit. And a gentleman called Matt, shouted to me, he said, George, wave. And this rogue wave, to me, it looked like it was 3 stories high, but I'm sure it wasn't quite that big. But literally, it was a massive wave that was going to break on top of me, and it did. And you only get that half a breath, and then you're down, and then you're rolling, and you can't get up. You're being pushed down. The waves there are really, really powerful. And you can see the surface, but you just can't get to it. And the fear is huge. And suddenly you come up for breath, and, waves come in sets. So there's another one coming very quickly, and you get another half a breath, and then you go down again. And that's when you start to think, my God, this might be the end. Weirdly enough, through the back of the wave, my friends, my buddies, saw that I was battling, and through the back of the wave, I felt this hand grab me and pull me out. And it was probably one of the scariest experiences I've had in the sea. And I don't actually swim in Nordic very often now for exactly that reason. So yeah, there's definitely a fear thing. In terms of wildlife, wildlife is interesting because like last weekend, as you know, I'm training for a very big event right now. So last weekend I had to do an 8K swim. I asked my coach to come along with me and be on the SUP alongside me, and I was actually quite frustrated because all I could see was a few fish and a bit of kelp, and there really wasn't anything else. But my coach was really not taking me in a straight line. And at the end of it, he said, "Do you realise what you missed?" And I said, "No." He said, "George, there were whales about 50 meters away from us. There were masses of bait balls, and of course, when you see a bait ball, which is a huge cloud of fish." There's usually other things eating the bait ball, which can be troublesome for us as swimmers. So all of that stuff is going on around you, and because I had someone with me, I was able to avoid it all. In terms of actually me seeing wildlife, I've seen some pretty cool stuff. One of the most memorable encounters was at Simonstown, and it was a day when the visibility in the ocean was so poor. And really, you could only see probably a meter in front of you. It was just one of those days. And I was swimming with 4 people and swimming along, and someone shouted that there were whales. And they only looked about 50 meters out, so we weren't too worried. And we weren't that far offshore. So, but obviously they're big creatures and could do some damage. So you do sort of take notice, but I wasn't too worried. Swimming along again. There seems to be a regular of me, but I separated myself from the group a little bit, and I turned my head to the side, and I see a very big eye looking at me. And of course, you sort of come up and come for breath, and you look at what's looking at you, and it was this calf, probably about 4 meters long, so still pretty big. And literally, he was just playing and swam underneath me, swam the other side of me. Obviously, I'm now looking for the mum, thinking I really don't want to get between the calf and the mother. But that was one of the most memorable experiences, just a magical experience to swim so close with whales. And then great whites, yeah, I've seen a couple. One particular swim, I was swimming from Nordic to Hout Bay, in incredibly cold water, and when the water's so cold, and I don't swim in a wetsuit, just a swimming costume and hat and goggles, but when the water's so cold, you can see a long way down. And as I'm sure people who are listening will understand the geography, Chapman's Peak is the peak you swim round, and that just keeps going down, so it's very deep around there. There's no exit points, and the boat hadn't reached us to support us, so we knew we had to do the first couple of Ks on our own. So not the safest of swims, and I look down, and probably about 20 meters or so down, I see a very big grey thing, and it's moving slowly, and it looks pretty chilled. And in my head, I'm thinking, what do I do? Do I tell the others that I'm swimming with that I think there's a shark down there? What use will that be? So I just, and then I thought, well, maybe it's my head playing with me because it's so cold, and maybe I'm just imagining things. But I kept looking down, and he was still there, and but he looked pretty chill. I kind of imagined him like listening to his tunes and just like chilling. I'm absolutely convinced he knew we were there, and they do, especially when the visibility is so good. Not that they have great sight, but he would have known we were there. And I just kept on swimming, and as soon as that boat came, I said, everyone's got to get on that boat because there's a bloody great shark down there somewhere. So yeah, we see it. It's definitely there, and I think a lot of the time we don't see it, but it still knows you're there. So that's definitely kind of always playing in your mind from a fear factor perspective.
So then, is it those great moments? It's almost like it makes me think of golf, right? I used to play golf many years ago. And then you might have a bad day on the golf course, and you swear to yourself, I'm never, ever getting back on the course. And then somewhere you hit that fantastic shot that's the shot that makes you come back. So are those, is it those, like, I don't know, how can I say this? Like, those magical moments that keeps you going back? Or is there something else that says to Georgina, regardless of the fear, regardless of the risks, this is something that I'm going to overcome. This is something that I I can maybe even control my mind around those things and how I frame it for myself. But I mean, at the bottom line, like, what makes you go back and keep facing these things over and over again, even though you know the risks involved?
Yeah, it's a great question, Francois. I think so there's all sorts of things that make you go back. There's achieving big things, and if you're going to achieve big things, which has always been a driving force for me, then you've got to put the work in. And I think Cobus talked about it so brilliantly, talking about discipline and consistency and how important that is. And when you're training for a really big goal, there's no shortcuts. You need to put in the discipline of training. Having said that, for me, the pool is the boring training. There is never a bad sea swim. It is obviously when you nearly die at Noordhoek, that's a pretty bad one. But you still come out and you go, I'm still here, and wow, I survived that. And some people wouldn't have done. So I think swimming in the sea it has so many different facets from, say, swimming in the pool. You're in nature. You're trying to master the cold, and whatever distance you're trying to do, that takes some sort of mental strength to overcome that. You can let your mind go. You can just let it be. You can meditate. It's some people meditate, some people do yoga. I swim. It's just the most freeing thing to be able to do something where you're also challenging yourself physically, working towards a goal, and really kind of making a difference to your own physical fitness, but also your own mental strength as well. I know if I haven't been in the sea for a week, I start to get a little bit edgy, I'd probably say, and it's almost like a reset. Just like people would think about a run, a long run, or a meditation, those kind of habits, just like Cobus was speaking about, those kind of habits are the kind of habits you find to reset yourself, to think about how you want to behave, how you want to show up, just as Kim was speaking about earlier. So what are your values? How are you gonna handle something? I often come out of a swim with huge clarity about how I want to approach something, how I want to have a certain conversation, how I want to plan something that I'm trying to do, how I perhaps haven't thought of someone's point of view that that will be important. So that sort of zen, if you like, that insight, you don't get from sitting at a desk. You get it from freeing your mind and freeing your body and doing this sort of thing. So that's the sort of stuff that keeps me coming back. And then all it takes is someone to say, shall we do X, Y, Z? And I'm a sucker for saying yes. I very rarely say no to big things. And then you're on the train of training for something really big, and then you've got no excuses. So that's what keeps you coming back.
Yeah, I love it. So tell me then, I mean, how does all of this translate into the work that you do? I mean, you've previously done things in many different areas, but then since coming to South Africa, you've been involved, particularly on the innate and stand-up side of things. I know your roles have changed. I can't keep up because you just keep going to the next thing and the next thing. It's amazing. But how does all of this help you do that? Because you do have a very high pressure, lots of responsibility, lots of expectations that come with those roles. So how does this actually play into that? How does it help with that? And are there any aspects of it that are actually, it's maybe not so helpful, but you still do it anyway? So or are there only benefits from combining this physical challenge, mental challenge, and then sort of doing the work that you do?
Yeah, thanks, Francois. Yeah, I work in a large corporate, and not everyone agrees in large corporates. So you definitely need to have a certain amount of mental strength to really navigate your way through that kind of landscape. My coach has a really wonderful saying about swimming, and he says, "Go slow to go fast." And I use that in all sorts of life events because I think it's so true. Sometimes, in fact, many times, I see organizations like rushing into stuff, tick, 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 tick. And actually the time you take to go slow, to work out all the stakeholders, to work out what different points of views are, to work out how things are going to work for someone, maybe not for someone else, to actually take that time to assess the ground and take people with you on the journey of whatever that journey will be, I think has been a really memorable lesson for me. So I certainly would say my mantra is very much go slow to go fast. And then having said that, once you go fast, you go. There is there's no time to get off the bus. There's no time to say no. So I think that's the first thing I'd say is the thought, all the thought and the thinking that goes in before the action is so important. And then the next thing I'd say is the digging deep. You know, I was born with a diesel engine. I go slow and I go far. I don't go fast anywhere. It's that mental toughness of staying in the water for 3, 4, 5 hours in that really cold water, and occasionally, you know, sometimes my first Robben Island swim was at 11 degrees, which was hideous. Actually, 2 hours 45 to swim in that sort of temperature means that you really need to go to a very deep place in your head. Now, again, that kind of mental toughness of knowing you're going to get there, but it's just going to take a while, and you're just going to have to dig deep, and you know, that is also something you draw on hugely, because you can also, you know, you can draw on that for your team. You know, there's tough times, and in fact, for me, the tough times always come in training. The actual events themselves, whatever they may be, are usually hard for different reasons, but physically they're not often that hard, because the hard stuff is done in training. The hard stuff is you know, those training swims that we do, that 8K I just did last weekend, you know, there's times when you want to bail, but you don't. And the fact that you haven't, and the fact that you then go on and achieve the thing, whatever it is, the goal that you're trying to do, because you've got that grounding of, I know I've done this, I can do this, I've done it in training. We just keep going. You know, and if you translate that to work, you know, launching the Innate platform, a brand new platform in the South African market, when you've got really powerful and strong incumbents already in the market, you know, that's not easy. And inspiring your team to follow you, to do the work that's required, to be disciplined, to be consistent, to completely show up in the way that we want everyone to show up, taking them on the journey, go slow to go fast. You know, all of that, if you wrap all that up with a big bow, now you've got something really powerful. And all of these lessons come from physical activity, whether it's swimming or, you know, in my previous life, whether it's rugby. Interesting that one is very much an individual sport and one is very much a team sport. And being able to move between the two is also quite important as well. So yeah, I think for me in my life, sport has taught me so much. It's taught me about getting on with people, working in a team, being strong mentally and physically, individually, and also, you know, understanding the shadow that you cast as you go into a room as well, and whether you can move the temperature of that room as you walk amongst people. So all of that is so important in everyday life, not just in corporate, but also in everyday life as well.
And just yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much for sharing that, Georgina. And it's, yeah, I must say, now that you've said it, like I must say, when you do walk in a room, that you do change, like the whole vibe. When you come on a show, when you speak at an event that we have, like the energy is always different. So I must say,
thank you.
Right, it's one thing to say these things; it's quite another thing to actually witness and experience it. And that's what I see with you. You always experience this stuff, which is absolutely brilliant. George, so tell me, like you mentioned earlier, that you are training for a massive event, and also I know there's a special reason behind all this stuff. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
I'd love to. Thank you, Francois. Yeah. So when you're doing hard stuff, really hard stuff, it helps to have a reason why you're doing the really hard stuff. And the harder the thing, the bigger the reason. So we're doing a big swim. Back in March, these 4 ladies or 4 of us, 3 others and me, we did a relay swim from Robin Island to Dasson Island, and that was a 51-kilometer swim. Dasson Island is an island just opposite Azafontein. So if you've ever swum at Azafontein, you'll know it's really, really bloody cold. And that took us 18 hours. And we got a Guinness World Record for it, which was the icing on the cake. So that was brilliant. On the back of that, we said, let's push it further. Let's push that boundary a little bit further. And we talked about doing, and it's a tough swim, a really tough swim. We talked about doing the False Bay crossing twice, so there and back. So that's from Millers Point to Royals and back again. That's a 66-kilometer swim between 4 of us. It's going to take some time between 20 and 24 hours. Lining up the weather conditions and the sea conditions for that is virtually impossible. So our weather window to do it in runs from the 1st of November to the 31st of January. So we've got to stay fit for 3 months and wait for that opening. So if I have to cancel anyone's appointment short notice, I'm really, really sorry. But I know you guys will understand. So what's wonderful about this swim is what we're doing it for. As I mentioned before, my background is rugby. One of our mermaids, a lady called Shanae, she's the injured player welfare officer for the Players Fund, which is the chosen charity of the Springboks. And what they do is they look to help people who've been irrevocably injured from playing rugby. And the 2 gentlemen we're raising money for, and we're trying to raise money, as much money as we can, to buy them electric chairs. The 2 gentlemen, one called MJ and one called Mandela. Both of them are now quadriplegics, from one from a scrum injury and one from just a bad tackle. Their lives have been, as you can imagine, irrevocably changed. And the mental toughness that I talk about is absolutely nothing compared with what these gentlemen have lived through and will have to live through going forward. All the help we can give these 2 gentlemen, particularly MJ, who's only 19, and it just means so much. So when it's really cold and when we are swimming through the night, because we're going to have to start this swim at about 9 p.m, swim through the night and then come back the next day, where hopefully we'll finish before sunset the following day. When we do this kind of swim and when it's 2 a.m. and you just think, what on earth am I doing this for? I'm doing it for MJ and I'm doing it for Mandela. 2 gentlemen who woke up one day, thought they were going to play the game that they loved, got on the pitch, and it all went a bit wrong. And when you're doing it for that, it makes it a little bit easier. So I know you're going to put a link in the chat for donations. Anything is very, very welcome. 10 Rand, 20 Rand, 1,000 Rand, 10,000 Rand. I'd love to say thank you to Ikifin, Hereford, Hampshire. They've all donated significant amounts to help the cause of raising money for wheelchairs for these 2 gentlemen, very brave gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Georgina. Yeah, I think it's such a brilliant cause, and it's definitely something to keep you going, as you said, like in the middle of the night when you wonder, why am I doing this? So thank you very much. I did put the link in the chat, but also it is down in the description. So if anybody wants to do that, we will definitely be doing that. So thank you very much, Georgina. George, we're about to do a live draw here for some books, but before we do, just maybe some final words to leave everybody with today that's maybe on your heart that you want to share.
Oh, thanks, Francois. Yeah, I just want to say, first of all, thank you for the support and the open arms that the South African people have given me over the last 9 years that I've been here, and the journey that I've been on has been so incredible and so well supported. And the interest and the ability to be able to speak on platforms like this about the stuff that I love, and having the added benefit that people find it interesting as well, is fantastic. So guys, it's just all about consistency, discipline, and just pushing yourself and saying yes to hard stuff. And you'll be amazed at how far it takes you.
Fantastic. George, thank you so much for your time. It was great speaking to you. And we'll see you at Ascend then. Hopefully you're not swimming before Ascend. Where did you say the swim is? I think I missed the date.
November the 5th. Well, sorry, so you're on November the 5th. My window opens November the 1st. It's unlikely it will be on November the 5th, looking ahead at the weather chart. So I think you're safe.
No, 100%. Thank you so much, George, and keep doing the great stuff. And we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Ladies and gents, thank you so much. That's it for today's show. We've got some incredible guests coming up, as if Georgina has not been an amazing, incredible guest already. Like, we've got more people coming on. So we also have Mickey Gambale will be on the show. Errol Meyer is coming. Who else? Oh, no, I can't remember. There's some other people as well. But anyway, so it's been a great day. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next week, same time, same place. Stay safe, be blessed, and prosper. Raise the bar. Continue to raise the bar. Love you. Bye-bye. All right, folks, that's a wrap for this episode of PROpulsion. I hope you got as much out of this as I did. Remember to tune in every Friday at 8 a.m. South African time for our live show called PROpulsion Live. You can find it at www.propulsion.co.za/live. And trust me, you don't want to miss it. If you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, hit that subscribe button or the follow button and share it with your friends, colleagues, and anyone else you think would get something out of it. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next one.